How's it going, everybody? Stellar here today, and I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of an intro to Substance Painter, kind of a little bit about how I use it, and I'm hoping this video can help other people out who are just getting started on Substance or who are just terrified of it for whatever reason. So when Substance launch, it will look slightly different to you than it does to me, probably because I have mine set up the way I like it, but you will get met with this face here, so we're just going to close that and yeah, go from there. So to get started, all we have to do is press File, New, and then I like to choose 4096. And here you'll just select your file for whatever it is you want to paint, be it FBX, OBJ, you know, whatever works. So we'll go ahead and select that. Once we have that selected, we'll just go ahead and press OK. And as we'll see here, the model has loaded into Substance Painter just fine, and we will go from here. So if we go to our shelf here and take a look at Smart Materials, we'll put something on with Edgeware. And I've spoken to quite a few people who've actually tried Substance Painter but got stuck at this step here. They put on a Smart Material and they realize, wait a minute, where's all my Edgeware? It's supposed to look like that and have, you know, nice raised edges and scratches and all that stuff, but why is mine just all boring looking? Well, it's because you didn't bake your mesh maps, and that's one of the first steps we got to do. So I'm going to delete those both. We'll go to our texture set settings here, scroll down, go to bake mesh maps. I like to uncheck ID and thickness. ID is good for masking and everything. It's also good for game engines and whatnot, but I always leave that unchecked because that's just one less map I have to bake. Same with the thickness. This is a metal object, so there shouldn't be any subsurface scattering or anything like that. So next up, for the output size, I'm going to select 4096. You can always select 2K, 1K, you know, so on and so forth, and it'll be a lot faster to bake, but for me, I get the best results with my bakes with 4096. I'm going to uncheck average normals, and I'm going to click subsampling 4 times, so we can just get a good amount of anti-aliasing for our curvature and all that good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and press Bake Selected Textures, and once that is done, I will come back. Alright, now that the baking's completed, you'll realize down here for your mesh maps that you have all of your normals and everything, and these will get updated as you add materials. So we'll go ahead and close that out. And we'll just inspect the model to make sure there's no horrible burn marks or anything like that. And that's usually, you get burn marks and issues like that when your UV might have overlapping islands or whatever, but it looks like this came out just right, so we can continue on. So what I usually like to do is I like to just grab a Smart Material and slap it on there, just to see what our Edgeware is looking like, and if you'll notice, it is working properly. We did the same thing with this material before we baked it, and it was all silver, so we're looking pretty good now. So we'll go ahead and get rid of this material here, and we can start painting this step by step. So when it comes to Substance Painter, you really want to look at it like a 3D Photoshop, your layers. You got to think about it as far as real life goes too. So if you want to have materials added on here, it's best to do it in how they would be made out of real life. So with this, we're just going to go with Steel Painted, Scrape Dirty. Just go ahead and drop that on there. Not too happy with how that one looks. So one of the things with Substance Painter is you gotta look and find out what material works best for you. And so I like the scratches on this one, but if you'll notice, the color's everywhere and we don't want that. So first of all, what we can do is we can go ahead and edit this paint color here. Can change it to any color that we want. One of the very nifty things about Substance is you can also color grab off of the internet. Alright, So now that we know everything works, we can go ahead and get started on the texturing. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose steel painted here. It's what I used on my last grenade that I made. I've already made this grenade once. A few of you guys may have seen it already, but I figured I'd make a good video on how to go about painting. So if you'll notice, the color is on everything. We don't want that. But before we do that, I'm going to just change the color to where it looks a little bit more pleasing instead of bright red. And the cool thing about this is you can change it to any color you want it to. And it's always editable. You can edit it whenever you feel like you need to for whatever reason. So it's always there for you. And we can also use the color picker. So anything we see on the internet or another tab open, we can go ahead and yank the color from that. So I'm just going to go with this kind of browny green looking color here. I don't know what you would really call that color, but that's what we're going to go with. Kind of do something like that. Now what we need to do is tell Substance where we want this color. So we can go ahead and close that folder, right click on it and add a black mask. We'll go over to our Polygon Fill tab on the left side here. And I'll just select the cube for Mesh Fill, and I'll just select the mesh here, and we'll do this one as well. So we got that. And it looks like it wants to make this part of it as well. That's quite all right. So let's see about fixing that. We'll go to orthographic view, over to our box select, and I'll press X to change the mask from filling white to filling black. So press X and now it's black. Just kind of zoom in here, and we're just going to select all of that. And we'll just go a little bit crazy on the bottom here. I'll press X again, just so we can add that back, and do the same for that. And we're just basically going through selecting our mesh and everything, you know, assigning the colors to what we want it to be. Right now I'm just polygon filling, or not polygon filling, but just filling the quads here since it wanted to be difficult and join these two together. Sometimes if you have overlapping mesh, it will cause the masking to think that it's a solid object and not two separate objects. So be wary of that. It doesn't always do that, but it can do that, especially if the geometry is sharing the same geometry as the object. So for example, this tape shares the same geometry as the grenade, and it's a really dense geometry grenade because I made it so I can get some nice close-up views with the when it comes to rendering and everything. I don't want to see jagged, horrible geometry and everything if it were to be a low poly or game ready. But what I'm teaching you here will translate over to, you know, low poly and everything, and eventually I will do a video on how to actually go about making a low poly model and baking it. So we're going to swap back to perspective view, and if you ever get stuck in the mesh and you don't feel like scrolling in or out a million times, you just press F and it'll refocus it for you. So that's a neat little feature there. So we can go ahead and get out of this selection mode here. And continuing on, I'm not quite happy with how this dirt is going, so what we'll do is go into our rust, and I believe that's what it is, and we can edit the masks. So I'll right click on the mask and add a paint layer to it, go over to brushes here on the shelf, select dirt, and I'll just press X like we did with the band here, and just kind of paint away some of that rust because it was a little bit on the intense side. A little bit too much going on. I don't want all that dirt and grime there. A little bit's fine where the tape is, because you got to look at how dirt and everything would collect on this over time. So you don't want to go too crazy. I don't like how uniform the dirt is around this grenade, so I'm just going to go through and kind of just chip away at some of the paint a little bit to kind of give it some variation and make it not look so clean. And we'll do the same thing with the bottom here. Now, if you're in Substance Painter and you realize, man, it's really dark on this side of the model, I wish I had light over here. Well, if you hold Shift and right click, you can rotate the sun or your environment, and it will give you light wherever you need it to be. So we kind of got that going. I've realized that I also do not quite care for how many scratches are on this thing, so we're going to go to our paint mask here. I'll add a paint layer to it. Make sure our brush is selected, which it is. And I'm just going to add some of the paint back in some of these scratched areas, because it's a little bit too scratched for my liking. So I'm just going to go through, get rid of some of these scratches here. And then we'll see what we're looking like. So I got rid of some of the scratches. It looks a little bit better in my opinion, but I don't like how clean this rim is, so we're going to add a little bit of the paint back to it as well. We're just kind of editing the smart mask. I've seen too often people will throw their objects into Substance Painter and slap a couple of smart materials on it and call it a day, and it just doesn't look that good, because you could tell they just slapped a smart material on it and called it a day. Whereas if you go in here and actually hand paint some of the wear and tear, it'll end up looking a lot better and a little bit more believable. So I'm going to go back into our rust mask here and just kind of get rid of more of this rust, because it's a little bit too much, honestly. We don't need all this in our lives. Be perfectly fine with just a little bit of it. And I'll leave that pool there, since the ring I plan on making rusty. So now this is a little bit too matte, so we need to make it a little bit more shiny. I'm going to bring that down just so it can give something the light to bounce off of and show off all of our texturing and everything. And I'm also going to increase the height of this paint layer just to make it pop a little bit more. Something like that works. And if we'll see, all this rust here, it's just kind of scratches and everything as far as that goes. So we can go through, get rid of some of those scratches, because too many scratches just doesn't look as good. You can keep a few, get rid of some. You don't have to get rid of all of them, or you can get rid of all of them. It's all up to you. It's about how worn and bad you want this grenade to look. So I'm quite happy with that. There was just a bit too much on this side here. And we can start seeing our normal map working with us. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of height to the rust and see what we're looking like as far as that goes, just so I can give it a little bit more definition. Make it look more three-dimensional. So I'm pretty happy with that. So moving along, we'll go ahead and leave that where it's at now. I'll go ahead and double click on that and rename it. We'll just name it Green Paint. The next one, we need to start getting some of this metal here. So I'm just going to go to my Smart Materials. We'll just kind of look through here. Go with Steel Rust Surface. That's a good one. Now, I'm not quite happy with how this rust looks, so we can actually go in here to our mask that creates the rust layer kind of crank down that rust a little bit. It's a little bit too crazy. We don't need all of that rust going on now. Something like that. You want a few rust spots, but you don't want absolutely too much rust because then it would just look a little goofy. I like the way that looks. Now I'm going to change the color of the rust because I am not a fan of the way the rust looks. So I went ahead and hit X on that. I'm going to click base color here. Type in rust. And I'll just pick rust fine, drag, or just click it rather. And we'll realize that it is still a little goofy looking here. Sometimes, you know, it doesn't always work out. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that, and we'll see about just making it whatever color we want. And it's going to be a pain as far as that rust goes, but I like this material, so we're going to keep it. I am going to, however, mask off this, so add a black mask. I'm just going to select what I want to be that material. Go in, may as well do that one too. So we're looking pretty good there. Nice and worn, beat up metal. But I do want to add another layer just to kind of make the spoon of this grenade look a little bit different than the body of it as well. So I'm going to add that little bit in there. Next up, I'm going to add a fill layer. I'm going to add a black mask to it. Go to this selection here, and we're just going to select the spoon. I'll take off the color, the height. We'll just work at it a little bit at a time. I'm just going to make that metal. Add some roughness. And a little bit of color. I'll make that solid black. And then we can go up here and just edit the color of the spoon, basically. So it allows you to change the color of the spoon whenever you want, while also keeping the underneath side as well, or the underneath layer. I just wanted enough for a little bit of a difference there. I'll just name that spoon. I'll name that trigger. Even though it's not a trigger, the spoon flies off, it triggers the hammer to hit the igniter and so on and so forth. So, moving swiftly along. We'll add another material here, but I'll just go with normal materials. And select steel rust and wear. We'll add a black mask to that. Select just the ring here. And if we get in here and actually mess with this material, you can increase the rust intensity. So we'll make it just a little bit more rusty. Maybe just a little bit less. Much better. So that looks good to me. Go ahead and close that. Now we need to do a material for the actual pin itself, which in this case is not really a pin, it's kind of just like a captive thing. I'm gonna go with steel rough. Add a black mask and select that. So that looks pretty good. The only thing is it needs to be a little bit more rough. So now we have our pin set up. We're looking good. We're getting there. You know, we're making a grenade slowly but surely. And we'll go ahead and go back to our green paint here and the rust. And I'm just going to get rid of some of this rust along rim here. It's too much for my liking. Don't want to get rid of all of it, but I do want to get rid of some of it because it is a little heavy on the rust. So that looks a lot better. A little bit more believable. So, this grenade's looking a little bit naked, so we need to kind of add some trades to it. Some designations, some markings and everything. And if you'll notice, and I don't know how well the video is able to pick this up, but we do have some dents and all that good stuff in it, so we can actually add to that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just add to that just a little bit, add some on, take some off. Add a little bit of rust on, take a little bit off. Got a big old dent here, so we can add a lot of rust. Take some off. That looks pretty good to me. Now we'll go ahead and add some stampings to this to make it look a little bit more believable. So we'll click our top layer here. Anytime you want to add a fill layer on top of a layer, doesn't matter where it is, you click that layer and it will add the fill layer to the top of it. So if I were to click this paint here and add a fill layer, it'll add a fill layer on top of it. So I'm going to add a black mask to this. We'll go to our alphas tab, and the cool thing about alphas is you can make your own alphas for Substance Painter and import them. So for this, I'm just going to search RG42 for making this last night. I already have it uploaded in here. Going to scale it up, make it nice and big. Kind of just place it somewhere that looks good. And sometimes if you're using the dirt brush and you select a different brush, it will still keep all the jitter settings, which is rather annoying to me. I cannot stand when it does that, but it is what it is. So I'm just going to add RG42 here. And I know that looks like a P and an upside down backwards L, but that's RG in Russian. So for this layer, what we'll do is we'll give it just a little bit of height. Kind of change the paint color to maybe like a dirty yellow color, kind of like that. Zoom out and see what we're looking like. It's a little bit too dark, so we can go ahead and increase that just a little bit. Something like that. And since we have a mask, what I'm going to do is go to brushes, scroll down a little bit until we get to sharp line, and I'm just going to run over where there's already scratches on the layer below. So we'll do something like this. I don't know why it's doing that. Let me take a look here. Get rid of follow path. Just kind of go through and edit our paint here until it kind of reflects what's going on the actual grenade itself. So what I'm going to do is just go back to brushes and select dirt again. We'll do dirt 2. Make it really small. And I'm just going to get rid of paint on this where I see little holes and everything, as well as this down here, because we don't need the paint from the stamp to actually be on our tape here, because that would just look a little odd. Get rid of some of the paint there and here. And another little thing I like to do is just kind of give it a little bit of a, make it look like it had a rough life, you know, we're making a old World War II grenade. So I like to kind of go in and mess up the paint a bit. Maybe go into alphas and select like a dirty edge or something like that. Turn the flow all the way up. And we're going to get rid of the size jitter and angle jitter. Just kind of chip away some of the edges. And the way, I know I probably should have said this at an earlier time in this video, but in able to rotate this, all you have to do is hold control and left click, go up and down. Control and right click increases your flow, or control left click and drag left and right, it messes with your flow, and control and right click, moving left to right does your size, moving up and down does your opacity. So that's just a neat little thing to know. You don't have to go up here and rotate it or go into the brush settings here and rotate it, because that would just be a little bit annoying, especially if you're trying to get stuff done, you know, in a timely manner. So we're getting there slowly. Next up, I'm going to add a material for tape. So let's find us a good material here. I think I'll go with plastic base. We'll add a black mask. Add it to that, and we'll pretty much be doing the same thing we did for the green paint. And that's what I was talking about earlier. My thing is like a million miles away, so I'm just going to press F to focus right back on it. Make sure we're in the right selection here. Right now it's auto-saving, so I'm going to pause that and come back when it's done. Alright, the autosave is done, and now I'm just going to go in and do pretty much what I did last time, but only work smarter and not harder. So you can either click the squares manually, or you can just click and drag your mouse and it will do it for you. So that looks good to me. Go into perspective mode once again, and I'll press F to refocus. And now we can go in and edit this material here and actually make it look somewhat decent. I'm going to go with like a blackish gray color. I'm going to turn down the grain roughness and get rid of some of the surface imperfections. I don't quite care for how those look. And we can increase the dirt, because this is a pretty neat material where it actually has dirt layers and stuff already on it, which is quite helpful. In fact, I'm going to increase the grain just a little bit, because I want to give this tape a little bit more character than just being random boring black tape. So that looks pretty good. Going to increase the scale and just play around with it until I find what I like. So I'm going to actually turn that grain back down and doesn't look like it wants to work with us. So I'm just going to Control Z and get back to this original position here. And now I have tape. One final thing we can do is we can add a fill layer here. Go to our shelf, select Smart Masks. Just add some dirt cavities masks, so we'll drag and drop that onto our fill layer up here. And if you'll notice, it creates a mask in all the cavities. So same thing as last time, and I had a paint layer here. Get rid of some of this excess paint and everything, or the dirt, because we don't want too much. A little bit's fine, but too much is just too much. Wish that made more sense than it does, but you know, it is what it is. It'd be like that sometimes. So I'm going to just kind of get rid of some of that, because we don't need that much. Like I said, too much is too much. That looks good to me. We're going to go in and actually change this to like a darker color. I'm going to turn the metallic all the way up and accidentally click the height map there, so we can actually give it just a little bit of height just to kind of make it react with the lights a little bit better. And if we'll notice, it's actually looking pretty decent. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of do like a rusty brown color almost. We have nice buildup of materials. I'm going to go and increase the roughness as well. Go back to our mask and just kind of take a little bit off where it might be too thick. So like that. That looks pretty good to me. And a final thing, what we can do is just add some like roughness variations here. So I'll add another fill layer, another black mask, make my brush nice and big, kind of just splotch on some strokes here and there. It doesn't have to be precise or anything too crazy. Make sure you get some on the tape as well. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to make the brush go a little bit smaller here and just kind of get rid of some of it because we don't need all of that. We just want a little bit. You can also do this with a mask and set up like a, like a smart mask or whatever. That is pretty much doing the same thing that I'm doing, but sometimes doing it by hand is a lot more satisfying when it comes to the results. So that's why I choose to do it like this. And you'll notice over time, the more you do substance painting and everything like that, what your preferences are, what works best for you and everything. So you just got to play with it and find out what's going on. Alright, so I like that. We'll go in, we'll get rid of the color map and the metal and the normal, the opacity and the emissive. The opacity and the emissive won't be there for you, but you can add it in if you go to your texture set settings and add in another channel. So we'll go back to this. I'll make the roughness down so we kind of get some little shiny bits here and there that kind of just break up the overall picture of things, and then we'll increase the height just a little bit so that way it kind of messes with the paint, kind of makes it look a little bit more bubbly, a little bit more old. We can decrease the roughness even more, make it look like grease or whatever. And so that looks pretty good to me. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. I know it's not like a professional video or anything. I don't like to claim that I am a professional, but I do hope that you guys can take something from this and learn. Substance isn't as scary as a lot of people make it out to be. So yeah, get in there, start substance painting some stuff, have some fun with it. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, or emotional outbursts of any kind, definitely feel free to leave that down in the comments section. If you like the video, please like it If you find it useful, please share it out to your friends, your family, your grandmother, your dog. It doesn't matter. I would really appreciate it. Every bit of what my community is doing is absolutely amazing. I love every one of you guys. Keep up the hard work and don't ever give up on your passion. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And until next time, keep blending away and substance painting away.